Grace and peace, grace and peace, grace and peace. Welcome, welcome. Give people a chance to pop in. We're going to be looking at the book of Hebrews, but we're going to be doing an introduction. An introduction to the book, and then we'll go through chapter by chapter, however long it takes us to go through this powerful book. All right. We'll just go ahead and open up to the book of Hebrews. Take notes, hit the like button, share, subscribe, let people know we're on. Let people know we're on. It's a little late live. We'll get started in just a second. All right, let's get started in this introduction. The book of Hebrews is what we would call a homily or a sermon. A homily or a sermon. A lot of people, you'll hear, who's the author and things like this. I tend to think that this is a Pauline sermon, but it is written by Luke. I can't really, sources and stuff prove that, but it reads like Paul. It sounds like Paul, but it reads like Luke based on the level of Greek and sophisticated Greek, and the syntax is very Luke. So it sounds like it's a sermon that Luke heard Paul preach, and he was taking the notes. But there's different theories on who wrote it. But Hebrews is a homily, a sermon, it's usually a homily is commentary that follows scripture reading. You give, you're giving the public explanation of a doctrine after you've heard the homily. A homily is a speech or a sermon that's given in such a way that it teaches a moral lesson, or it relates it to life. It relates it to everyday life. The date of the book of Hebrews, definitely before 70 AD, probably somewhere between 63 and 65 AD, because because the temple is still standing. It seems the temple is still standing in when the author is writing and preaching, because the people want to return back to the temple and the sacrifices. And so you see places like Hebrews 8:4. He says, now if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are those who offer the gifts according to the law. And those are in the present tense, means that it's ongoing right now as he's writing. So the temple is still standing. The sacrifices were still going on when the book of Hebrews is written. Chapter 9, verse 6. Now, when these things have been so prepared, the priests are continually entering the first part of the tabernacle, performing the divine worship. And there's other places that when you read it, you seem like the sacrifices are going on. And then we look at a very, very important passage. If you go to Hebrews 13:22, Hebrews 13:22, he says, I urge you, brothers, bear with, listen to this tu lagu tes perikalesios. Listen to this word, this message of exhortation, of warning, of encouragement. And this fits with the 5 warning passages in the book of Hebrews as well. So this is a sermon, a homily, and the writer himself, or the writer says that this is a word of encouragement or exhortation. Again, this is just introduction material. So some of the background themes. What are the background themes? You have leaving one religious system for another. Leaving one religious system for another. You're leaving Judaism for Christianity. These are very important here. What else do we have? We have the superior character of the new covenant to the old covenant. We have the high priestly ministry of Christ is one of the themes. The Christian life as a pilgrimage, as a journey to the city of God. Like the book of Numbers almost. They're journeying. So Hebrews, we see, is a journey. It's a pilgrimage. It's a pilgrimage. So what are the problems or the issues that we can see here? Leaving Judaism for Christ. Leaving the shadows. The skia. For the substance, ritual for reality, the temporary for the permanent. This is going to be very, very important. The listeners, the audience want to return and go back. They want to return and reject the 2 R's of Hebrews. Jot these down. This is very important. You're going to hear it over and over again. The 2 R's. They want to return and reject. Return and reject. What is the life situation of the letter? The life situation. He's writing to Jewish Christians, probably like in the home church, a small congregation. And in the past, they've been evangelizing, witnessing, sharing the gospel among other Jews. And as a result of this, they're now encountering tribulation. They're now encountering suffering, loss, imprisonment. Persecution now arises, and then they, being the Jewish Christians, are now considering leaving the faith and going back. There's the return. There's both right there. There's the return, leaving the faith. There's the rejection. So they want to leave the faith and go back to Judaism, go back to what was familiar. And so this possibility, we're going to see the author, the writer, says this is a sign of apostasy. He is writing to encourage the Jewish Christians here. He's writing to encourage them to persevere in their faith. Stand firm in the faith. And all of this is important. This background is very important because it's going to help us as we study, as we interpret the pressure that these people are on, and the pressure that their pastor, the person who's writing this to them, he sees the pressure and he addresses it. He encourages it. He pays attention to their spiritual state. And so when a Jew left the faith, when they left Judaism, he was looked upon as a turncoat, as a traitor, an apostate, or a meshumed. Meshumed. They are an apostate. And this can be punished by, you being disowned by the family, excommunicated, job loss, mental harassment, physical torture, public mockery sometimes. What would happen is, this is another key word, the lapsy. Lapsy is, this is when they would defect and go back. When the Christian and stuff would go back. And so to escape this persecution, because that's the key. When persecution arises, how do we respond? How should we respond? And so the writer, the preacher, he addresses their escape route. And this is the only way they felt they could get out of being persecuted. And that is to renounce Christ. To renounce Christ, to reject Christ, and go back. And we're going to see the author says, there's nothing to go back to. That's going to be his argument. There's nothing to go back to now that you have Jesus. So what were some of the arguments for Judaism? Why was it so tempting for them to go back? There's rich heritage in the prophets. You have angels doing various things that are prominent. It's associated with the lawgiver Moses. National ties with the military conquest of Joshua. You have the glory of the Aaronic priesthood, the sacred temple, the different services they had. And so you can see the question would be, what do Christians have? What is so great about this new religion, this new faith, that I shouldn't go back to this? So that's the question. What do Christians have in comparison that makes it want to go back to? And the answer is Christ. Christ is what we Christians have. Christ is greater than all of this. Jesus Christ is greater. Jesus Christ is greater. The purpose of the letter. What is the purpose of the letter? The purpose of the letter is to encourage believers in the face of some fresh new crisis. Stand firm. But also to warn Christians of the danger that's out there if they did not grow spiritually. If they remained immature, they would waver in their commitment to Christ. We don't want to waver in our commitment to Christ. Hebrews is also warning Christians of the judgment of God if they fail to maintain that Christian stance. If they fail to maintain that Christian stance. Hey, grace and peace, brother. Grace and peace. God bless you. Walking in the light. God bless you. That's the purpose of the letter here, this sermon, this homily, is to warn Christians of the judgment. Also, to encourage them by reminding them of the character of the Lord as he is their champion. He is our champion. Hebrews chapter 2. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 10 through 15. He's the champion of the faith. Hebrews 2:10 says, "For it was fitting for him, for those for whom are all things, through whom are all things, and bringing many sons to glory, to perfect the author of their salvation through suffering." He's the author, the leader, the champion of our salvation. For both he who sanctifies and those who are being sanctified are all of one. For which reason, he is not ashamed to call them brothers. Let that sink in. The Messiah, the anointed one, calls us brothers, saying, "I will recount your name to my brothers. In the midst of the assembly, I will sing your praise. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children whom God has given me." There's a common family association here. Therefore, since the children share in the flesh and blood, he himself, Jesus, likewise partook of the same, the incarnation, partook of flesh, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is, the devil. Jesus is our champion. Christ is our champion. And that is how over and over again the writer of Hebrews is going to encourage us to remember the character of the Lord. And then he's our high priest. He's sinless. He's our high priest. He's the mediator. He is our mediator. And he is going to strengthen them. They need to be encouraged. They're facing persecution on all sides. They're facing death, loss of property, excommunication. And we could lose a job, or someone makes a post about us on social media and we ready to give up the faith. We don't know how to suffer. And we can't even imagine the suffering of some of the Christians today in other countries. We don't know what suffering is here in America. But even back then in the first century, to be excommunicated, talked about, loss of property, imprisoned, all because you decided to follow the Messiah. And so it seems here that a potential danger, I want to stress this point, there's a potential danger to this community, a potential danger to this community that he's writing to seems to lie in the temptation to the two R's, to reject Christianity and return to Judaism proper. Again, go guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Type of 1 if this is blessing you. If this introduction to Hebrews is being a blessing to you. And as always, if you want to donate to the ministry, drop $1 or $2. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly appreciated. So there's a temptation to reject Christianity and return to Judaism again, to be back under the law. That's that temptation they're trying to go to. There's that temptation. And so that's going to be our 2 R's in the book of Hebrews to help you understand the book of Hebrews. The temptation to reject and return. Reject and return. And so it seems like these believers made up a house church in or near the city of Rome. So it seems like he's writing to a little house church. Hebrews 13, verse 24. Greet all of your leaders and all the saints. Those from Italy greet you. So your leaders, the leaders in the church, the leaders in this house church here. Members of this church, as you read this letter, this sermon of Hebrews, they're becoming discouraged about Christian commitment. They're becoming discouraged about their Christian commitment. And so the author, the pastor, challenges his readers to hold fast their Christian confession. That's a word for me and you right now, no matter what we're going through. Hold fast. Hold fast. The author, the pastor here, sees and describes his audience as spiritually immature. Even though their Christian experience at this time should have borne them more fruit, he says, y'all should be teachers by now. You're spiritually immature. These believers shouldn't abandon their constant fellowship with one another. When persecution happens, when tough times happen in your life, that is when you need that church community, that fellowship. We need each other. When you're faced with the temptation to reject Christianity and return to something else, don't abandon your fellowship with one another. But you should be mutual sources of encouragement, stimulating Christian commitment. Don't forsake. Don't forsake. And so it's important to see that the warning or the exhortation sections of Hebrews reveal a community of Christian believers. Some, they're wavering in their devotion to Christ. Their experience of going through all of this persecution, their picture of Jesus is being blurred. This Christian faith, all of what they're going through is leading this congregation to a further drifting away from right thinking and right living. And so the author is going to challenge them. He is going to encourage. So when you read the book of Hebrews, read this as a pastor encouraging the discouraged in his community. He's encouraging discouraged believers that they're drifting from the real Christianity. They're drifting. But he wants them to draw near to God and to endure in their commitment to Christ. He wants them to draw near to God and endure in their commitment to Christ. Authorship. I believe it was Origen who says, only God knows who wrote the book of Hebrews. But from what we can see, the author was a dynamic preacher. The book of Hebrews actually reads as a sermon if you read it all the way through. The author is extremely knowledgeable of the Old Testament and its interpretation. There's some verbal analogies and the argument from lesser to greater. Extremely knowledgeable. The author is highly educated. This is a very sophisticated Greek in the book of Hebrews. The author was a committed minister of Jesus. He was deeply concerned about the spiritual state of believers that he addressed. Some candidates, Paul, Apollos, James, Barnabas. We really don't, we really don't know who is the author. And so the theme here, the theme is the superiority of Christ. The superiority of Christ. And so I just wanted to give that brief introduction to the book of Hebrews. We're going to have a great time studying through this book. Also going to be studying through the book of Philippians. We're going to have a great time with this book. We're going to pick up, the next video with chapter 1 and things like that. But I pray this introduction blesses you as you prepare to read the book of Hebrews. Knowing that Jesus is enough. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing in life right now, Jesus is enough. He's better. He's superior. Amen, brother. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Again, thank you guys for checking us out. Always, if you want to be a blessing, if this has blessed you, hit the like button, share, subscribe. But also, if you want to drop $1 to the ministry, $RevCockrell, it will be greatly, greatly appreciated. So this is Rev C saying, God bless you. God bless you. God keep you. And I will see you on the next video.